I get it. You've probably spent a few nights scrolling through endless monitor specs, wondering if any of them actually make a difference when you're trying to climb the ranks in a fast-paced shooter or just want a buttery smooth window drag in your favorite RPG. The fear of splurging on a monster-sized price tag only to end up with a screen that looks great on paper but feels off in practice is real, especially when OLED monitors are still a niche that promises perfection but sometimes hides quirks. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So, let's talk about the ASUS ROG Swift OLED PG27AQDP and why it might or might not be the sweet spot for someone who lives for that ultra-responsive, ultra-vivid experience. First off, this isn't just another 27-inch panel, it's a WOLED display that pushes a 480Hz refresh rate and claims a 0.03 milliseconds response time. Those numbers are eye-catching, but the real question is how they translate when you sit down at your desk, plug in your rig, and start playing. If you're a competitive FPS player who lives for split-second reaction time, the combination of that insane refresh rate and the OLED anti-flicker tech is a game-changer. In my own test runs with titles like Valorant and Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, the monitor kept the motion blur to an absolute minimum. The AI assistant's dynamic crosshair overlay actually stayed perfectly sharp even when the frame rate spiked to over 300 frames per second, which is something you rarely see on LCDs where ghosting can still sneak in. For those moments when you're hunting a headshot from across the map, the AI sniper feature highlighted distant enemies without you having to manually adjust any settings, just a subtle glow that never felt intrusive. But here's where the value proposition gets nuanced. The OLED panel delivers a 99% DCI-P3 color gamut, meaning you'll see deeper reds and richer blues than most IPS monitors at the same price range. If you also dabble in creative work color grading, video editing, or even just watching movies, the uniform brightness across the screen is a noticeable comfort. The custom heatsink ASUS built into the back of the unit does a decent job of keeping the panel cool during marathon sessions, and the OLED Care Plus suite automatically adjusts brightness to extend panel life. In day-to-day use, that means you won't be constantly fiddling with settings to avoid burn-in. The monitor handles it in the background. Now, who should walk away? If you're primarily a casual gamer who plays a few titles a week and isn't chasing the top-tier competitive ladder, the extra cost over a solid 144Hz IPS panel might not justify itself. The 480Hz capability is impressive, but you'll rarely, if ever, push a graphics card to consistently hit those numbers in modern AAA titles. In that scenario, you're paying premium for a feature you won't exploit, and the money could be better allocated to a higher resolution or a larger screen if you want that extra immersion. Another practical limitation is the panel size and resolution. At 27 inches and a QHD 2560x1440 resolution, the pixel density is fine, but if you're used to 4K or love ultra-wide real estate for multitasking, you might feel cramped. The monitor's stand is fairly sturdy but not the most adjustable you'll find. Tilt is there, but height and swivel adjustments are limited, which could be a pain if you switch between seated and reclined gaming positions. Also, OLED's inherent risk of permanent burn-in, despite the OLED Care Plus safeguards, remains a concern for anyone who leaves static UI elements like Discord chat windows or game HUDs on screen for hours on end. I didn't see any burn-in after a week of heavy use, but that's something to keep in mind if you run a stream with static overlays. On the software side, the DisplayWidget Center is a neat addition. It lives in a small overlay that lets you toggle OLED Care Plus, switch color profiles, and even pull up the AI assistant without diving into the monitor's OSD menus. It's quicker than pressing a physical button, and it felt intuitive after a short learning curve. The AI crosshair and AI shadow boost actually helped me spot enemies in darker maps, which is a subtle advantage that can translate into more wins, especially in games where lighting is used as a tactical element. Pricing is where the conversation often turns. The PG27AQDP sits in the high-end segment, and while it's not cheap, you're paying for a blend of OLED quality, a custom cooling solution, and the ROG exclusive AI features. If you compare it to other OLED monitors that lack the 480Hz refresh or the AI suite, the price gap narrows considerably. For a player who can truly leverage that ultra-high refresh rate and the AI tools, the monitor feels like an investment that can shave off milliseconds and keep you ahead of the curve. Let's talk about everyday ergonomics. The monitor's uniform brightness means you won't have to squint at darker corners during long sessions, which reduces eye strain. The anti-flicker tech is especially noticeable when you enable high refresh rates. Some monitors start